Hi everyone, and welcome back to English for You. I'm Pat.
I'm Nikki.
And we're talking about modern English and also some old-fashioned English that is kind of going out of date. So yesterday we learned that modern English is always, in fact, we said constantly changing.
So some of the words like seldom or some gender nouns and some of the words that we don't use anymore.
Exactly. They're kind of being replaced by others that are more common in everyday speech that normal people, most people would use. One example we saw was seldom. Which is seldom used. It's more common, certainly for native speakers, to use rarely or not often.
And also the gender nouns, such as waitress, actress, and so on.
Yeah, they're not being used as much because it's often more equal to use words like gender-neutral words like business person, police officer, firefighter, mail carrier, and so on. A lot of publications will actually use actor, whether it's an actor or a man or a woman. They just use the one word to keep it kind of neutral. Some people say, well, actually, that's going too far. You're applying the male word to everyone. But others think, no, well, at least it's fair. We're not trying to distinguish. The only time they often do it is at the Oscars when there is a Best Actor, Best Actress award.
So today we're going to look at some more languages that is going.
Yeah, or in fact has already gone out of
fashion.
Yeah, let's check it out.
Reading.
Keep up with modern English. 3. How do you do? Very well. Thank you for asking. Although this greeting is certainly very polite, it's also as rare as hen's teeth. Perhaps you think British people greet everyone this way, and perhaps a few elderly individuals do. But this old-fashioned way of saying hello has been replaced by various other expressions. These range from universal ones like, "How are you?" and "How's it going?" to regional favorites. 4. Shall and shan't. Other auxiliary verbs have made shall and shan't obsolete. Instead of I shall go to the party, we say I will go to the party. In the same way, shan't has become won't. Remember, these words or phrases aren't wrong. Using them makes you sound old-fashioned and a little too formal, but people will understand you. However, if you want to sound like a modern native speaker, leave these older terms behind.
So today's article starts by saying 3. How do you do?
Oh, very well. Thank you for asking.
Although this greeting is certainly very polite, it's also as rare as hen's teeth.
Yeah, I'll explain that phrase in a moment, but how do you do is a greeting. So it's a way of saying hello to someone when you meet them for the first time or see them again after an absence. So I hadn't seen Nikki for a couple of months, I think. So when I came, it was like, oh, hi, Nikki, that kind of thing. I didn't say, Nikki, how do you do?
Howdy!
Yeah, that would be a little old-fashioned of me. But back to the idea of greeting, here's an example sentence. Before the meeting started, everyone there exchanged greetings.
那延续上一次的主题，今天我们一样要介绍一些现在时下已经不太流行或者是不常使用的英文。那第一个呢，就是打招呼的用法 How do you do？ 那 greeting 呢是名词，意思就是说打招呼或者是问候寒暄。那就是你看到朋友的时候，你可能就会先说嗨，你好啊之类的那种，都可以算是一种 greeting。那 greeting 的动词呢，就会是 greet means to say hello。那刚刚的例句就说到，在会议开始之前，大家都先互相打个招呼问候一下。
So I described this phrase, how do you do, as being as rare as hen's teeth. Now, hens don't have teeth. So this idiom, which to be honest is quite old-fashioned itself, means very rare. If we say something is as rare as hen's teeth, it's almost impossible to find.
那课文接着就告诉我们说，虽然这个打招呼的方式是非常礼貌没有错，但是它其实是非常少见的 as rare as hen's teeth， 意思就是说其实很少见或者是根本不存在的。那它字面上的意思就是说跟母鸡一样跟母鸡的牙齿一样罕见啊，我个人是没有看过任何品种的鸡有牙齿啊，所以呢意思就是说非常罕见或者是不存在的。
So back to the article, thinking about how do you do. Now, the article says, perhaps you think British people greet everyone this way, and perhaps a few elderly individuals do. Yeah, I think people maybe of my grandparents' generation would have said, how do you do, when they met each other, but not the young people of today. They greet each other differently. And as we've said, greet, this is the verb form. It's just the way of saying hello, hi, how's it going?
那可能有些人会认为说，英国人那好像都是这样跟人家打招呼的，但其实只有少数一些比较老的人会这样说而已。So Pat, you're British. Do you or your grandparents greet people this way?
No. My grandma, she's 90 this year, like maybe, but even though she'd probably just say hello.
Oh, sup, Pat?
Well, she wouldn't say that, but yeah, younger people might. I'm now one of the older generation, so the people 20 or 30 years younger than me, maybe we can ask them. But we're talking here that maybe a few elderly people might still say this. Elderly means old, basically, and we kind of mean elderly to mean those probably over 60 or 65, maybe even over 70. We kind of think of people who are retired, you know, they may already be grandparents or something like that. I'm old, but I wouldn't yet say I'm elderly. Right, there's a distinction there. So here's an example sentence. Elderly people don't have to pay as much when they take the bus or MRT.
Elderly 是形容词，意思就是上了年纪的或者是老的。那 elderly people 指的就是或者是 elderly individuals 指的就是老年人。
Okay, but as the article says, this old-fashioned way of saying hello, so how do you do, has been replaced by various other expressions. Now, we've used old-fashioned quite a lot in both days of this article. We just mean not in fashion. It's something that's seen as old, not modern, and kind of not cool.
Old-fashioned 是一个复合形容词，意思就是过时的，或者是已经被淘汰不流行的。那相反的，如果我们要说一个东西很潮，或者是很前卫，我们就会说它是 avant-garde。
Okay, so how do you do is old-fashioned. It's out. But what's in? Not just one single expression, various expressions. Various means of many different kinds and forms. One word, two words, longer sentences, English ones, some people use different language ones, all different kinds of ways to say, hello, how are you? Here's another way we can use the adjective various. There are various different restaurants on this road. They sell all kinds of different food.
那课文就告诉我们，这些比较不流行的打招呼方式已经被其他很多种用法给取代了。Various 是形容词，指的就是很多种的、各式各样的。So this how do you do has been replaced by a variety of expressions.
Exactly. An expression is a word or phrase that, kind of like the word term we saw yesterday, explains or gives an idea. We could talk about expressions of anger. A lot of them we can't say on TV. Expressions of greeting. Expressions of boredom. There's nothing to do. Often expressions are informal. They're maybe not formal dictionary language, but they're clearly understood. For example, the expression Blue Monday is used to describe the sad feeling people have when they go back to school or work at the start of the week.
Expression 是名词，在这边指的就是用字遣词或者是某一种用法。那课文就告诉我们说，还有其他打招呼的方式以及用法。 Expression 除了可以当措辞之外呢，也可以当做表情或者是一种表达的方式。For example, your facial expression 就是你的脸部表情。
So what kind of expressions do we have? Well, the article says these range from universal ones like how are you and how's it going to regional favorites. So we use this kind of phrase, this pattern, range from something to something. This pattern is used to show that there are many different examples or kinds of something, as well as present some of these examples on the page.
那打招呼的方式的范围其实很广，像是从比较常见的 How are you 到一些可能是因地区而异的打招呼方式都有。那 range from A to B 指的就是框列一个范围，那从 A 到 B 的范围。在课文这边呢，指的就是说从大范围的比较常用到的到比较小范围地区性打招呼的方式。
So we said some of these expressions are universal. If something is universal, it's found everywhere. It's extremely common and likely to be understood almost all over the world. So, wave is often a goodbye or it could be a hello. Thumbs up almost everywhere is good. There are one or two places where it isn't. And things like that. They are universal gestures. If you see a sign with a picture of a little man and a little woman, that's pretty much universal toilet. Yes.
Universal 是形容词，指的就是普遍的或者是全体的。那它的名词本来是 universe， 指的就是宇宙或者是世界。所以说，如果是全世界、全宇宙的，那就代表是很普遍的意思。
So that's the one side, so universal ones. Then you've got regional ones. Regional means it belongs to a particular region. So that's an area of a country, an area of maybe even just an area of one particular county. Just a small part of land that's kind of got its own kind of separate, unique, either culture, identity, weather, something like that. It's from a particular region. For example, 葱油饼 is a special regional food in Yilan, though you can find them all over Taiwan.
You can. 那 regional 是 region 的地区的形容词，指的就是某一块区域。那通常它是被分配的，像是在台湾，我们就会分成北中南3区，这些就是不同的 regions。那课文提到的 regional favorites 指的就是地区性的不同喜好。
So in the UK, for example, from the northern parts of England, you might hear people say, I'll eat. I'll eat. It's kind of the same as all right.
Oh.
And a very, very regional one is from my home city, where you might find people saying to you, hey up me duck. Hey up me duck. That's how we say hello.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
There you go, a Nottingham greeting. Hey up me duck.
Okay, so the article says shall and shan't.
Yeah, that's number 4. These words shall and shan't. So the article explains other auxiliary verbs have made shall and shan't obsolete. We don't really see them anymore. Auxiliary verbs are helping verbs. So words like be, do, have, will, can, and so on. They modify other verbs and give different meanings to a sentence.
那除了前面提到的名词还有打招呼的用语之外，助动词也是我们要讨论的东西之一。Auxiliary verb 指的就是助动词 or we can also call them modal verbs，情态动词。通常是用来支配主要的动词 expressing a possibility, a necessity, or a willingness of doing something.
Yeah, exactly. So the difference between I can do something and I will do something. Exactly.
And I might do something.
Exactly. So that change, they all change do. Okay, or when you make like present perfect and you use have been, and that changes the meaning. It talks about some time in the past. So we say that shall and shan't have been made obsolete by other modal or auxiliary verbs.
那另外我们看到课文说这些助动词 have made things obsolete， 在这里 make 有使得、使成为的意思。那它的句型呢是一个主词加 make 加受词再加一个受词补语。那受词补语可以是一个形容词或者是一个名词，解释为让一个东西变得怎么样。For example, ice cream makes me happy.
Right, ice cream makes me happy, rain makes me sad, and so on. Here we're saying some of these other auxiliary verbs have made shall and shan't obsolete. If something is obsolete, it's no longer used, it's not important, it's been replaced by something more modern, like old-style flip cell phones. They've been replaced with smartphones. Or videotapes and tape music cassettes have been replaced by, MP3s, streaming, and so on.
Obsolete 是形容词，意思就是过时的或者是淘汰的。那像是现在已经没有人会用磁碟机或者是那种录影带了，那我们就可以说 things like floppy disks are now obsolete or are out of date.
So we've said other modal verbs, other auxiliary verbs are now being used instead. And there's some examples in the article. We see instead of I shall go to the party, we say, I will go to the party. And here, instead of is used to give an alternative choice or decision. So in this case, it means don't say that, say this.
Instead of 指的就是取而代之的事。那课文呢，这边意思就是说，我们已经不说 I shall go to the party 了，那我们现在会改说 I will go to the party.
There's a few others as well. We might say, shall I call you? We say, should I call you? Something like that. The article also has another. In the same way, shan't has become won't.
And the article says, remember, these words or phrases aren't wrong.
Exactly. This is our conclusion, and it is important to remember, this is not incorrect English we're talking about here. But as the article says, using them makes you sound old-fashioned and a little too formal, but people will understand you. So we said using this kind of language makes you sound a little too formal. And formal relates to an important or official occasion rather than a casual one. If you sound formal, then it seems like you're talking to a stranger or like a boss or a teacher instead of a friend. So if you say to someone, how do you do? Oh, I seldom go to parties, but I shall go to yours. They might think, well, are you 100 years old, or are we strangers, or what's going on here? You would sound a little bit strange. Here's another example of formal. George was quite formal when we first met, but he soon relaxed and started talking normally.
那有一点很重要的事情就是说，虽然这些字现在已经比较少人使用了，但是也不代表它们是错的，因为语言本来就没有对错，只是比较多人使用的差异而已。那只是说，如果你今天用了这些字，可能就会让你听起来比较复古，或者是有点正式，但是大家还是听得懂的。那 formal 是形容词，指的就是正式的或者是正规的。So if today you're giving a presentation, you kind of have to be formal instead of being casual. 那上述的一些用法可以说是一种 formal speech. 那相反的话，比较口语的，我们就会说是 colloquial speech.
Right. So again, you can use these terms we've talked about. It'll just make you sound a bit old-fashioned. And the article concludes by saying, however, if you want to sound like a modern native speaker, leave these older terms behind. To leave something behind means kind of leave it in the past. Don't take it with you and use it. Put it behind you.
Leave something behind 指的就是丢弃。那所以课文最后就说，然而如果你想要听起来更像一个比较现代一点的英文母语者的话，那你就要先把这些比较老的措辞放在一边。Okay, so now let's go to today's For You Chat question.
Okay.
For You Chat.
Okay, so today's For You Chat question is, what other old-fashioned words or phrases can you think of?
International travel. That's old-fashioned. Nobody does that anymore. We can't. No, but more seriously, one that I often see, and it's often in grammar books, but it's the word lest, L-E-S-T. It basically means unless or in case. So if someone says, I shall take an umbrella with me lest it rain, you'd think, okay.
You just travel through time.
You travel through time, or you're like an elf from a computer game and you've been alive for thousands of years or something like that. Okay. We would say, I'll take an umbrella in case it rains, or because it might rain. So this word lest is kind of old-fashioned grammar that you'd see it if you read like, a Charles Dickens novel or something like that. So even 100 or so years ago, it's still kind of used, but it would not be really used in modern writing today. Can you think of any old Chinese words?
Chinese word, but I thought of an English one.
Oh, you got an English one?
Yeah, I think nobody says mobile phones anymore.
I would argue and say in Britain, you will hear a lot of people say, oh, I'll call him on my mobile.
Really?
Yeah, mobile phone is a lot more common in the UK.
Because I thought people said like phones or iPhones.
Phones, yeah, cell phone. It is probably going out, but I could still, maybe, again, I'm old. So, but yeah, I grew up, mobile. I'll phone him on my mobile. Probably it's just been replaced by phone. But yeah, the reason for that is older mobile phones were not cell phones. They didn't have a cellular network. So as if you could move them, they were mobile, and that was the way it was. But that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for watching, everybody. For English For You, I'm Pat.
I'm Nikki.
We'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Vocabulary Review.
Greeting. Michelle gave her old friend a very warm greeting, which included a long hug. Elderly. Tina's job is to care for elderly people who don't have any family. Various. Maggie bought a box of chocolates that had various flavors, including strawberry and orange. Expression. The man was very rude to the waiter and used some strong expressions to say that the food wasn't good. Regional. This style of cooking is very regional and can only be found in this part of the country. Formal. This dinner is a formal event, so it's important to wear nice clothes like a suit or a dress.
智慧小补帖
Old-fashioned. Universal. Auxiliary verb. Obsolete.
以上节目是由活用空中美语制作，活用空中美语杂志，请洽询全国各大书店。如欲索取试听教材，请来电02-2364-4000 02-2364-4000，或上网查询，网址是 www.english4u.net www.english4u.net